Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to the live stream. And last night, in the words of Thomas Tuchel, Chelsea stole 3 points from Watford at Vicarage Road. It was a far from good display at all. Probably our worst since the 5-2 defeat at West Brom at Stamford Bridge. But at the end of the day, all that mattered was the 3 points, and we stay top of the table as we head into this busy Christmas period. Joining me today, once again, is Theo from the Shed End podcast to go through the game itself and give out some player ratings. So thanks again for joining me, mate. This wasn't good, was it, last night?
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think any Chelsea fan expected that. You're playing a Watford side that's played with injuries that are in the bottom half of the table. You know, we want to bounce back after a poor performance against United, and opening 10 minutes really didn't reassure me at all. It looked like it was Watford domination, and then the whole game carried on with that, Watford almost looking like they'd score from every time they come into our half of the pitch. And, Tuchel did say it'd be a tough game going into the game, and he was right. And then post-match, he said, we stole the 3 points, and he was right again. So very lucky performance from Chelsea.
I mean, obviously, we come out. There's quite a few changes in the lineup, some of them enforced, and obviously some natural squad rotation, which is needed with so many games coming up in such a short period of time. Were you quite happy with the starting lineup?
I think based on the players that were doubts, the players that were injured, the players that maybe needed a rest after playing the last 3 or 4 games, I thought the lineup made complete sense. I was happy to see Saul start at the time. Felt like he deserved the chance. We'll come to that later. I think he didn't seize that chance at all. But no, couldn't really complain about the starting 11 at all.
I mean, it wasn't a good start either. Watford came right out from the blocks quickly. As you would expect, you've got a big team coming to Vicarage Road. You've got the home fans behind you, and they were right up for it straight away. We didn't start well at all, and within the first sort of 5-10 minutes, Mendy had to make a pretty handy save, I think, from a decent header. Yeah,
it was Watford domination in his opening 10-15 minutes until there was the break because of the cardiac arrest. And yeah, Mendy was called into action very, very quickly. I think it actually took a deflection of Aspi, so it makes it an even better save. But that kind of set the tone for the game. And Watford had plenty of chances after that. And even in the last minute, that Kuchka free kick looked very, very dangerous. So honestly, at around the 60th minute mark, had you told me, would you take a point from this game? I would have probably said yes when it was still 1-1.
I mean, obviously, the stoppage in the game, which is not good, but thankfully that the fan himself is obviously stable, and that's great news. But having started so poorly, you would have expected after that stoppage that we'd actually maybe wake up and come out, a bit better. But that just wasn't the case at all. I mean, were you surprised at how slowly we started? And we only had 1 shot on target in the first half, which obviously ultimately was the goal. But yeah, it wasn't pretty.
It wasn't great at all. I mean, before the stoppage and after the stoppage, I felt maybe the stoppage we might benefit from it in a way that it would have maybe, put a spanner in the works with Watford's, how quickly they started the game. And we'd maybe, seize that opportunity to come out of the dressing room and play better. Maybe Tuchel would have actually spoken to his players in the dressing room about those first 10-15 minutes. But, after that small stoppage, it was actually probably even worse. And that goal we scored from Mount was against the run of play, if anything.
I mean, before we get to the goal and obviously the chance where we hit the post, do you think part of our struggles were the fact that we were so lightweight in midfield in terms of no one neither Saul nor Ruben were able to control the game or dictate the pace of a game like a Jorginho, and no one was kind of doing the defensive work like a Kante does? Obviously, I think that's probably where a lot of our problems stemmed from, and ultimately that's where the goal came from as well. Ruben was ultimately culpable for a poor piece of play in the middle of the park.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I don't think we would have started so poorly had we had one of Jorginho, Kante and Kovacic alongside Ruben. I think those 3 players are probably, at least one of the 3 needs to be starting every single game. And I did feel for Ruben during that game because he had 3 different midfield partners throughout it. He started with Saul, started the second half with Chalobah, then Chalobah was forced off, and then finished the game, I think, with Mount. So probably took quite difficult for him knowing if he could go up the pitch, if the other player would, sit back and defend. It wasn't his best game either, but I did feel our struggles came from that midfield too throughout the game.
Obviously, apart from the goal, we did have one other chance. Mason Mount striking the post. For me, obviously he has struggled a little bit this season, fitness form wise, but again, last night he showed why he's actually so important to this Chelsea side, and we are a better side when he's in it. Do you feel that he should have done better with that chance that he hits the post with?
No, I think it was actually a very tight angle, and he did very, very well, if anything, to hit the post. Arguably our best player last night alongside Kai Havertz. And I completely agree with you. When, Mount's got a point to prove, when he's fit to play, then he's probably our best player on the pitch at times, probably our most important player in terms of creativity. And now that there's probably more options, for a split place in that starting 11 within his position, it's probably a healthier competition for him. And I think he'll get the best out of his performances as well.
I mean, we come to the goal, and the goal itself is actually a really nice team move. Starts with Marcus Alonso down that left side, nice header into Kai Havertz, I think. And then obviously Kai unselfishly, I mean, I was half expecting when I was watching it for him to kind of take that on himself, but he unselfishly lays it off for Mount, who finishes it nicely. And I mean, what did you make of that move? It was a really nice team move, and arguably probably our only bar hitting the post, probably our only really good piece of play in that first half.
Yeah, I mean, that goal definitely came against the run of play, and it was a brilliant goal, if anything. Alonso, brilliant touch, lays on the plate to Havertz. Similarly to you, I thought he'd shoot straight away, but I have to credit Kai Havertz's his vision, because, to spot Mount's run on his right-hand side, and we're kind of, assure that we'd be scoring if he'd passed it to Mount. Then that's a great piece of play from him. And then I was hoping that goal would maybe, switch things over and maybe allow us to play our football, but still, Watford found a way back into the game soon after.
I mean, and that equaliser which you just touched on there, it's a disappointing goal to concede, isn't it? Obviously, as we just mentioned beforehand, Ruben giving it away in midfield. And then even then, the shot still takes a deflection off Rudiger, but it was a poor goal to concede, wasn't it?
Very poor. I felt Ruben quite sloppy losing the ball in the middle of the pitch. But then, you lose the ball, you count on your defenders. And I just feel like Rudiger didn't really close down Dennis fast enough. I felt like he was almost allowing him too much space to shoot, to dribble, to, drive the ball forwards. And I think he was even kind of like backtracking as well, whereas the defender should be, coming forwards towards the striker. So it was poor defending and, quite a sloppy goal to concede.
I mean, obviously we get to the break, 1-1. Not a good first half performance. We see a change at half time. Saul hooked off. He's made 2 Premier League starts, both occasions subbed at half time. Thiago Silva comes on and we see a slight change in shape, change in formation. Were you happy to see that? Did you think that something needed to be changed at half time?
I think we needed a bit of defensive stability in midfield, and Silva coming on allowed Chalobah to move in that midfield role. And I know that Chalobah's played CDM at Lorient when he was in Ligue 1 last season, and he did a pretty good job there. So I was quite confident when I saw Chalobah swapping places with Saul, and also Saul, already on a yellow. It was spelling danger. What happened with Bakayoko at Vicarage Road a few seasons ago. So I was quite glad to see him come off. He wasn't playing with a lot of confidence. He could have easily picked up a second yellow. So that substitution made complete sense.
Yeah, and I think, change of system, Mount coming a little bit deeper as well, sort of helps us out a little bit there as well. I think it added a bit of extra dynamism in that midfield. And he showed that he can do a job there. And perhaps with the injuries he's got in that area, it's a possibility that he could be an option. Obviously, ideally, like him a bit further up the pitch, but he can do a job there for sure. But I mean, yeah, another big issue for us is the ever-growing injury list. Chalobah off after an hour. Seems like a hamstring injury is what the early reports. Obviously, no official confirmation from the club yet. But if it is a hamstring injury, we're looking at weeks out here. And with a packed festive period coming up, he's going to miss a lot of games. And that's a big blow, isn't it?
Really big blow. Still worst thing to lose a player at the start of December. Because as you said, we've got a really busy festive period coming up, a game every 4 days, if anything. And Chalobah has, proved this season that he can start games. We can rely on him as a centre-back or even a CDM at times. And he's been playing some brilliant football. He started our last 3 away to Leicester, at home against Juventus, and at home against United, and last night as well. So it's a big blow to see him come off. We're maybe thinking now Christensen comes back in, and maybe for the less important games, so maybe Brentford in the Cup just before Christmas, play him alongside as in that centre-back role. But, it kind of just shows you that a couple injuries and, we're short on a few players in positions. So it's quite worrying. Are
you concerned? Because I can't remember a time for a long time at Chelsea where we've had a situation where we're picking up so many injuries so frequently. I mean, why do you think that is? Because it is a bit of a worry because the squad, we've got a fantastic squad, but it's being stretched to its limits now.
Yeah, I was actually asking myself that question today. I can't remember a time where we've had so many injuries or an injury crisis, if you want to call it. That first Conte season when we won the league, I can't remember a single injury in that season. I think maybe just Matic or Fabregas missed 1 or 2 weeks from around Christmas time. But I don't know what it is this season. Maybe just a lot of football. A lot of football. We're playing in lots of different competitions. Tuchel does rotate a fair bit of the team, but he does have his favourites. Chilwell was playing a lot of football recently, where just like Alonso was playing a lot of football at the start of the season. Reece James has probably played too much football as of late. So maybe just, and having such a kind of a squad where you have to rely on certain players as well, I think is quite plays its toll at the end of the day. And now, as I said, a game every 4 days, it's found that the players are going to start dropping like flies.
Yeah, I mean, it's vital now that we get as many players back as quickly as possible and that we don't actually pick up any more injuries or knocks, because even players just missing like one game, we seem to be picking up knocks. Every game seems to be, so-and-so is now going to be missing the next game, out for a few days. And when you're fighting for a title and it's going to be fine margins, injuries can be the difference between winning and ultimately falling short. But yeah, I mean, the game kind of, it kind of ebbed and flowed a bit, and you're thinking, we just can't see us winning this game. And fair play to Hakim Ziyech. Look, he wasn't great when he came on at all, but he pops up with that winning goal. And again, it's a great finish. And Lukaku showing what he can offer to this side, that physical presence, taking 2 or 3 players out of the game. And it's a great finish from Ziyech, isn't it? But again, we didn't really deserve that.
Yeah, we didn't. We honestly didn't. As I said, around the 60th minute mark, had you asked me, would you take a point? I'd have probably said yes. But I'm pleased that Ziyech took his chance and scored, because it can show, the 2 goal scorers yesterday are attacking players. Whereas of late, we've been just relying on defenders to score, midfielders, Kante and Jorginho from the penalty spots at times. So I'm quite relieved that 2 players that should be scoring scored last night. And Ziyech as well, I was criticising him because he was quite poor before that goal. But like we spoke about just before this recording this, we can have a poor game but then pop up with a goal like he did against Malmo, like he did a couple of times last season against City games. So I'm pleased for him. He scored, and hopefully now this kind of stretch of games where he's been starting, getting goals or assists may boost his confidence.
I mean, do you think on Ziyech, do you think now he's this is his big opportunity to try and establish himself and almost resurrect his Chelsea career? Because in the last sort of handful of games, he has offered something in one way or another, and he's been trusted to start in big games by Tuchel. So do you think this could potentially be a turning point for him?
I would hope so. I do think, similarly to Werner, he's almost still struggling to adapt to the pace of the Premier League at times. So those 2 players, maybe next summer, serious questions need to be asked if they still haven't really upped their game. But I am seeing slight improvements with Ziyech. And, the fact now that he's getting the backing of the manager to start games, come off the bench and have an impact, then I think that'll do him a world of good as well.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, once that second goal goes in, we hold on. There's a chance right at the end for Watford from a free kick, which you're sort of worrying, oh shit, is this going to go in? Is it not? Ultimately, it's kind of straight at Mendy, and it's a fairly straightforward save, and we hold on for the 3 points, and we escape with them, which we don't really deserve. But it's been funny season in that way. We probably didn't deserve the win against Brentford, and we didn't deserve the win today, but we got it. But then we definitely deserved the win against Man United and Burnley, and we didn't win either of those games. So it's kind of funny how those things work out. But Theo, how important was it that we did ultimately end up winning this game, given the fact that City and Liverpool just don't look like losing at the moment?
Really important. Honestly, I think should we win the league in May, we'll look back on this win, and it will be one of the most important wins in the season. Last night, City and Liverpool both won their games, and they're literally breathing down our neck at the moment. So if we can get out this Christmas period now, and I think we've got some relatively winnable games in the next few weeks. Should we get out this Christmas period, still top of the league, then, the odds will be in our favour, I think.
Yeah, I think once we kind of got West Ham out of the way on Saturday, which is a tough game, we've got Zenit in the Champions League midweek, and then I think we follow that up, with games against Everton and Leeds at Stamford Bridge. So definitely winnable games. And you've got the likes of Brighton coming up as well. So yeah, once we negotiate this, it does get slightly easier, but we need to make sure that we keep that momentum going. And ultimately, we will drop points, as will the other sides, but it's going to be vital that we just keep that momentum going. But yeah, such an important win yesterday. And ultimately, as you said, when you win those games that you don't deserve to win, that ultimately is what you might look back at the end of the season and think, yeah, those are the games that got us over the line. And if you don't win those games, it's like, yeah, that's kind of where it went wrong for us. But I mean, moving on to the player ratings then, Theo. Obviously, I'll just bring the screen up, but we'll start with Eduard Mendy. I thought that he had a pretty good game, a lot better game than he had against Manchester United last time out. Made some really good saves. His distribution was a lot better as well. It was back to kind of the Mendy that we've become accustomed to, wasn't it?
I'd have to agree. I thought he was solid, better with his distribution, a couple goal kicks that found, some of the midfielders or the strikers, and 2 very, very solid saves, I think, from the outspeed deflection and even the free kick, which was hit with a lot of venom. So I think, a lot more reassuring, especially in that shaky, mistake against Man United. So if I was to give him a rating, I think he can't really go wrong with maybe an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I think he was really important last night, and he's going to be a big miss in January when he goes off to the African Nations Cup. So we're going to have to hope that that Kepa can kind of step in and get some minutes and do the business, because that is going to be a big loss, Eduard Mendy. But yeah, I thought he was really good last night, mate, and I'd have to agree with you. I think an 8 out of 10 is not unfair for Mendy. So we go Mendy with an 8. Moving on to Rudiger. I didn't think this was one of his better games, I've got to be honest. He wasn't terrible. He defended well, but I think he was a little bit slow at reacting to that goal. But again, he wasn't bad. He showed why he's really important to this side as well, and it's going to be important for all these festive periods and for the remainder of the season. But yeah, it wasn't one of his better games, was it?
I'd have to agree. I think we're just becoming accustomed to some solid Rudiger performances, but I do think he was quite at fault for the one Watford goal, and he could have done better. He could have closed down Dennis quicker. He should have been backtracking. He should have maybe tried to stick out a foot to get hold of that ball. So I think it wasn't his best game. I don't want to give him the highest of ratings, maybe. So I think maybe even a 6.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, I don't think he deserves anything higher than a 6. I think it wasn't that great from him. But no. Again, he's kind of a victim of the own high standards that he set for himself. But yeah, by those standards, this was a subpar performance really from Rudiger. Moving on to Andreas Christensen. Before we talk about his performance, what did you make of Tuchel's comments about him not starting the last few games because of his contract situation? I thought that was quite a fascinating thing to come out and say.
Yeah, didn't really make sense because Rudiger's in a very similar situation and starting games, so it kind of contradicts, what's being said if he's picking Rudiger to play in that back 3, or maybe it's just trying to say that so something gets done over his contract, or triggers something on the Christensen camp to sign the papers or whatever it may be. So maybe it's a bit of mind games, but from a Chelsea fan's perspective, it doesn't make sense.
I mean, do you think that? I mean, I have to say, like, all the reports initially were that this deal was done, just waiting for it to be signed. Something's obviously holding it up, and it doesn't look like it's getting any nearer to being resolved. I mean, are you concerned that? Because for me personally, I've never felt concerned that Christensen might leave, but in the last few days, my thinking slightly changed, and I feel that there actually might be a small chance that he does move on. I mean, what do you feel about his future?
I think if one of the two between Rudiger and Christensen is more likely to sign that contract extension anytime soon as Christensen, yeah, I'll have to agree with you. As time goes by now, we're closer to Christmas and the New Year, and he still hasn't signed a deal. It's kind of like question marks are being asked now. So I am slightly, puzzled and surprised, and it almost felt like the one that was a done deal at the start of the season, given how well he was playing, given, the game time he was getting, given, the fact that he was getting trust of Thomas Tuchel to start games. So I'm a little bit puzzled by this one.
But on today's performance last night itself, obviously first time he's found himself back in the lineup in a few weeks. What did you make of him?
I think relatively solid. I can't really remember much. I think he won a few fair amounts of headers. He dealt with what Watford had to, every time they attacked quite well. But I don't think I think the defenders, they did a decent job, all of them, but nothing outstanding like we'd be like against Leicester or anything like that, where they were actually starting attacks as well. So I think it was just a solid, maybe 7 out of 10 performance from Christensen.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. I think I wouldn't go quite as high as 7. I think a 6.5 is probably fair. Bound to be a little bit of rust having not played a lot, but yeah, he was one of the better performers on the night, and I did think he was a shade better than Rudiger. But he's going to be really important to this side, and he is one of our best defenders when he's on form. And so, as I said, it's vital that we do keep him because he's at a great age as well, where he's only going to get better. But yeah, I mean, I think a 6.5 for Christensen based on last night is pretty fair. Moving on to Trevor Chaliber, someone that is firmly got the manager's trust now and really showing that he belongs at this level. His 4th start in a row last night. What did you make of his performance? Sadly, gone off with an injury, as we discussed earlier. And obviously he moved into midfield in the second half. What did you make of him?
I think the fact he's played centre-back in that first half and then moving to midfield for the start of the second half shows how versatile he is as a player, which is great to have. I think similar to Christensen, he did a solid job, in both positions, nothing outstanding. But then again, that's because we're so used now to, any of these defenders putting in really good performances. But no, I'm pleased that he showed the manager that he can play midfield. And as you said, it's just such a shame about the injury. It's going to show maybe that if you do start 4 games now in the Premier League at this pace, then you'll probably be a victim of an injury. So I think if I had to give him a rating, he's probably a 6.5 or 7, similarly to Christensen.
Yeah, I have to agree, mate. I'm just so gutted that he's picked up an injury because he's really shown that he belongs at the top level, getting a great run in the side. And now he's going to have a multiple week setback. And as we've seen on this side, someone being injured is someone else's opportunity. If someone else comes in and does really well, it might be quite hard for him to get back in once he's back fit again. It's just kind of how it goes.
Very true. Very, very true, actually.
So Chalobah 6.5. I think that's all fair. Moving on to Azpilicueta. Before we do that, quick questions come in. Do Chelsea look to sign Declan Rice for that holding midfield position, considering we are massively missing Kante and Kovacic? I mean, Rice is always linked with Chelsea. Would you be keen for Declan Rice to come in the summer?
I think he's a fantastic player, really, really good player. I don't think we'll sign him in January, and I don't think West Ham will let him go in January at all, especially given that they're potentially up there for a top 4 or top 6 finish. But I think I can see Rice eventually joining Chelsea in the near future. But I think for now we should be very reliant on Kante, Kovacic, and Jorginho, and hopefully Gilmour next summer.
Yeah, no, there's no way Rice is coming in January. Next summer, that's a big question to be asked. Depends who moves on. If Declan Rice is to come in, a couple of top players have got to be sold. We're perennially linked with Tchouaméni. We've obviously got the likes of Conor Gallagher to come back into the squad as well. I think there's going to be an opportunity for him next season. So we are very overpopulated in that midfield area. So I think if any signings are coming in, a couple of people are going to have to move out of being shipped on from midfield. But back to the player ratings and back to Azpilicueta. He's no Reece James by any means, but he's been such a stalwart for the club over the years. But I've got to be honest with you, I thought he was quite poor last night.
I mean, I got a feel for him because he hasn't really played as much football as he's used to maybe in the last couple of seasons. But yeah, he's just no Reece James. Like you said, he doesn't have Reece James's leg. He doesn't have Reece James's physical ability. Even Reece James's crossing is now probably better than Azpilicueta's. But I think maybe there was a bit of defensive fragility last night. And even, we looked a bit poor going up the pitch, purely based on the fact that Azpi was playing over Reece James potentially. But I think he's a good option to have as a backup for Reece James. But in the big games and the games we should be, we need the 3 points at all costs. We should be playing Reece James.
I mean, is it a worry to you? Because it's a slight worry to me that we look a completely different side when James and Chilwell don't play.
Yeah, I was reading an article saying how our English fullbacks are a lot better than our Spanish fullbacks at the moment. But But yeah, I think Reece James and Chilwell, I think it's purely based on the fact that they've been playing more football than Alonso and Aspie in the last couple of months. So hopefully when we kind of overcome this Christmas break and Aspie and Alonso are getting more regular game time, they'll look back to their usual selves. But yeah, we didn't look anywhere near to the level that we play with Chilwell and Reece James.
And we don't have that attacking threat either going up the pitch. I mean, as good as Aspie and Alonso are as professionals, they don't offer what James and Chilwell offer going forward. And I think we lose a lot of our attacking threat when they play as wing backs. Back to a rating for Aspie. I mean, I don't know about you, Theo, but I don't think he really deserves much more than a 4 or a 5. I thought he's very average.
Very, very average. And I think 5 out of 10 is quite representative of an average performance. So I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that is fair. I'll go for a 5 out of 10. And moving over to the other side, I mean, this is another Marcus Alonso, a player that seems to divide opinion amongst Chelsea fans. I thought he was okay last night. Again, did well for his involvement in the Mason Mount goal. Nice header into Havertz. But other than that, again, didn't offer much going forward. And a couple of times defensively was a bit suspect as well. Yeah,
similarly to Aspie and Reece James, I think now, Alonso and Chilwell, we can clearly see that Chilwell's probably performing better in that left wing back position. But I'll give him credit for the pass to Kai Havertz, which set up the Mount goal, and even the control from that to bring that ball down from Alonso was superb.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, really, really nice. I do want to give him a better rating than Aspie for that. Purely for that, that assist to the assist, I suppose. But yeah, just still, we're wanting that Alonso to, do what Alonso does best, and is kind of look dangerous when he goes up the pitch. So I'm tempted to give him maybe a 6 or a 6.5, but that's purely for that control or touch. But
yeah, I mean, I think he was probably a shade better than Aspie last night. I mean, I'd probably say apart from that touch and the setup, he didn't really offer much else. So I mean, I'd probably give him a 5.5 purely based on the fact that he was involved in the goal. Otherwise, he didn't really do much. I mean, moving on to the midfield 2 now. This is obviously, as we touched on earlier, this is where we really struggle in the game. Another opportunity for Ruben, and unfortunately, obviously, we're both big fans of Ruben, as a lot of Chelsea fans are. This was another missed opportunity. He was really quite poor again, wasn't he?
Yeah, he probably at fault alongside Rudiger for the Watford goal. He looks a bit hesitant on the ball. I think he tried a few shots at times, which I'm happy he did, but they were easily deflected or blocked by Watford defenders. But probably not his best performance. I was hoping he'd bounce back after what was kind of a poor performance against United, but not really. I still feel like he's being played out of position in that midfield too. I'd much rather see him higher up the pitch, but it's just so much competition for to start games with that front three. So as it stands, with the injuries and the players that are doubts, it made sense for him to start, but not his best performance.
I mean, I think he struggled not having Jorginho or Kante alongside him. I think having Saul Niguez alongside him, who we'll come on to shortly, I think that made it a lot harder for him. Perhaps he doesn't really trust him, or Saul doesn't offer the same as what, the likes of Kante and Jorginho offer. So I think Ruben did struggle there. And it particularly first half, he was very poor. But I just feel it's a bit of a missed opportunity, because these are the games where other players are injured that you've got to put in some decent performances to give the manager something to think about when everyone's fit. And ultimately, once everyone's fit again, Ruben's going to be an impact player from the bench. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But Theo, he did look a little bit better in that second half, when we had a slight change in system, didn't he? He wasn't as bad as he was in the first half.
No, as the game went on, he kind of grew into it. And I do feel like, I think we're just quite harsh on Ruben because we want him to really excel when he does get this chance. But yeah, he did perform slightly better in the second half, which will maybe boost his rating by a point or 0.5. But I want to give him maybe a 5.5 or a 6. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was that great. I mean, I'd probably be inclined to give him a 5. I don't think he was any better than average.
I'm scared to see your rating for Saul Niguez now.
I mean, Ruben, not great. I mean, yeah, Saul Niguez, I've got to be honest, and I think a lot of Chelsea fans seeing on Twitter during and after the game, his Chelsea career is done now for me. I do not want to see Saul Niguez in a Chelsea shirt in central midfield. The only time I want to see him back in a Chelsea shirt is just as an experiment at left wing back to see if that is possibly an opportunity. But this guy last night was honestly shocking. He was awful. Playing in that double pivot in the engine room, the midfield, he needs to be getting on the ball a lot. He just didn't look like he had no confidence. He wasn't going towards the ball, didn't want to receive the ball. He attempted 7 passes in 45 minutes last night. And I mean, I felt slightly confident given Tuchel's kind of praise of him in the build-up, saying he was ready, etc. He just looked like he couldn't be bothered. And, you know, two Premier League starts, hooked at half-time in both of them. Yeah, Theo, his Chelsea career is pretty much over, isn't it?
You'd think so, yeah. The less said, the better about Saul Niguez's situation right now. And even Tuchel post-match saying doesn't really know where it goes from here for Saul Niguez is an indication that it's kind of all but over. But yeah, it's just disappointing. You know, he's given a chance. I think his first Premier League start since his debut against Aston Villa, and hooked at half-time, clumsy yellow card as well. I don't know. It's just like he's just no Jorginho, Kovacic, and Kante. And I think just how like Ruben playing alongside Saul didn't do him any good. I think Saul playing alongside Ruben didn't do him any good either. 2 midfielders that probably will never play again together. Yeah. And probably should never play again together as well. So I think I can't really give him more than, I think I'll give him maybe a 2 out of 10 just because he showed up.
But I was going to say, mate, to be honest, he did nothing. For me, he just gets a 1 for turning up, basically. Yeah.
Lacing up his boots and putting them on.
He was honestly, it's one of the worst Chelsea performances I've ever seen from an individual. I mean, what do you reckon was worse? Bakayoko those years ago at Vicarage Road, or this Saul Niguez performance?
It has to be Bakayoko. At least Saul Niguez made it to half time on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, Saul Niguez with a 1. I mean, yeah, he was terrible. I mean, I don't know about you, but were you quite happy with the signing? Like when we got him in, because I think like we didn't realise that Ruben was going to kind of show the form that he has, and we were very clear that, you know, we needed someone else in there, particularly given the amount of games and the injuries that we pick up in that area. But this signing just hasn't worked out at all, has it?
No, I was actually really happy on deadline day. I thought we kind of steal it. We felt like we were stealing him from Manchester United, which was also always nice. I think our memories from him, you know, as Chelsea fans watching him for Atletico, was that goal he scored against Bayern in the Champions League. And, you know, it felt like a bargain as well, a loan with an option to buy, I think, for 30 million euros or something like that. So it was ticking all the boxes, but it just hasn't worked out. It's almost like we could have maybe done, you know, we would have benefited from keeping Gilmour rather than him.
I mean, would you send him back in January? I mean, if I don't know if there's a send back option, but I think if we did, we'd have to still be paying part of his wages or whatever we've agreed to pay. So do you feel he'll just stick about and he just won't play, or should we send him back?
It's just, I don't know. I think if we do keep him, the only time I trust him to play in midfield would be in maybe an FA Cup, you know, 4th round or something like that.
Third round against like a League 2 side or something.
Yeah, that's terrible to say, but that's probably the only time I would trust him.
I mean, it feels quite disrespectful given kind of what he was doing in his earlier days at Atletico. But yeah, his level has just gone through the floor. And yeah, honestly, absolutely shocking last night he was. Moving on to the front three. Quite excited to see this front three together. We'll start with Kristen Pulisic. Obviously, back to fitness. Had done well off the bench against Leicester, popping up with a goal and stuff. Not so good against Man United. And this again, I hate to say it, he offered very, very little. Didn't do a lot at all. I thought he was really quite poor on the night, which is really disappointing.
I was very happy with the front three. I thought when I did my predicted lineup, I wanted those three to start together. Yeah. It made sense with the injuries and the players that were doubts. I feel out of the three, Pulisic was probably the poorer because the other two actually were brilliant on the night. But yeah, didn't really look very lively. Probably looked better actually defensively than he did offensively. I remember him clearing a few headers from corners. And yeah, I think very average performance again from Pulisic. You do wonder now, you know, he's getting a chance in the team. He needs to prove himself, just like how, you know, other players need to prove themselves with the injuries. So I do hope, you know, he ups his game with the upcoming fixtures. But
I mean, and it was an opportunity as well, wasn't it, mate? Sorry, that obviously Hudson-Odoi started the last 8 or 9 games in a row. Obviously, getting a bit of a breather. Pulisic's got a chance on the off to kind of impress, maybe stake a claim, start against West Ham. He didn't really do anything, did he, to suggest that he's going to retain his place over Callum, perhaps?
No. I think if you're kind of going off form and merit right now, for West Ham, it should be Mount, Havertz or Lukaku if he's fit potentially, and Hudson-Odoi. I think those three need to be starting together.
Yeah, I've still a bit of a missed opportunity for Pulisic. I think he's obviously still fully finding his feet, getting back to full fitness. But when he's given opportunities, he's got to do something to influence the game. Because it's a few games now. United, so he didn't play against United. Juventus, where he was poor in the false nine. Right off the bench against Leicester. This is another big opportunity, and he just didn't take it. I don't want to seem harsh, but I think he was below average. I honestly think maybe a 4 out of 10 for Pulisic.
Yeah, I was going to say 5, but I just can't really remember.
We'll go in the middle, 4.5.
Sounds fair.
But yeah, it wasn't a good performance. I mean, it's just frustrating because we know what the ability that he's got, but he's not at the moment. He's not really showing it on a consistent basis. Moving on to Kai Havertz. I thought this was a really, really good game for Kai. One of his best games of the season, I feel. I know he didn't score, but he contributed. Not unselfish assist. His hold-up play was really good. And yeah, really positive performance from him. And hopefully this is one he can kind of take forward. But I mean, were you impressed with Havertz last night?
Really, really impressed. I know he didn't score, but he was probably one of our best player on the pitch alongside Mount. Like I said, really lively, brilliant runs, cutting through defenders. And I felt, he scored a goal which was offside, which was brilliantly taken, actually. And like you said, some really good runs. His hold-up play was really good. He rarely lost the ball. So I want to give him an 8.5, I think.
Yeah, I think he was very good. But it's just that, again, with Kai, it's that consistency.
Yeah.
And then you worry because this position when he plays false nine is probably his best position in this setup. But that as soon as Lukaku's fully fit, he's playing there every week. So then what does that mean for Havertz? I mean, do you worry a little bit once Lukaku's back and in the starting lineup? What happens to Havertz? Because I don't know if you agree with me, but I just feel that being the central man, like the false nine or whatever you want to call it, that's really his best position. When he plays either side, he doesn't look quite as good.
I do think maybe when Lukaku's back to full fitness, I think Tuchel will experiment once again with maybe a front two of Lukaku and Havertz or Lukaku and Werner. Kai Havertz's numbers. 153 direct goal involvements in 301 games, and he's only 22. So I think the sky's the limit for him at the moment. So I think yesterday's performance would do a lot of good and boost his confidence as well. If he just needs to play more consistently, I feel.
Yeah, and he's done himself no harm to kind of retain his place in the lineup for Saturday. But yeah, I thought really good from Kai, and we just want to see that more often. I think that's why Chelsea fans are quite harsh on him, because they know how much ability he's got and performances he can put in. But yeah, it's just getting that consistency. That's the next thing for Kai, is just get that consistency in, and then he should get a solid run in the side. Moving on to Mason Mount, saving the best till last, really. A great performance from him last night. And I mean, as we touched on at the top of the show, he has struggled for form and fitness at the start of this season. But last night he was really good, wasn't he? Pressing from the front, took his goal really well, played really well when he dropped a little bit deeper into midfield as well. And he basically showed why he really is one of our most important players and is arguably probably first on the team sheet in that attacking three on that kind of form.
Yeah, he was superb. Really, really good. A goal and assist. It was the perfect game for him to come back into the team and start. I think not going to the international break probably did him a bit of good.
Yeah.
He was playing a lot of football internationally and at club level as well. Even though he scored a hat-trick against Norwich. Norwich were Norwich and they were poor. So I think that this was his best performance in the Chelsea shirt this season against Watford last night. And I think he should be starting games now. I think he's our most creative player. I've said this before. I'll say it again. And I feel if Havertz got an 8.5, I think Mount deserves a 9. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it's kind of there was a time when Mount was the first name on the sheet and he played every week. Obviously, that hasn't been the case for the last few weeks. But I think we kind of could be back in that position now. I think he's kind of showing Tuchel that, actually, do you know what? I need to play every week. And I think that front three does look better when he plays in it. It looks a bit more balanced for me. But yeah, I can't argue a goal and an assist. And that's really been my one criticism of Mount, is that he doesn't contribute enough in terms of goals and creating and assisting, basically. So yeah, if he can kind of keep improving those numbers, then yeah, we're going to have a really special player on our hands and someone that can really contribute for the rest of the season and for many years to come. But yeah, I agree. A 9 out of 10 for Mason Mount. I thought he was fantastic last night. Just a quick word on the subs. Won't rate them. Lukaku got about sort of half hour-ish. Again, encouraging to get him back to fitness. What did you make of him?
Yeah, encouraging. 2 cameo appearances now off the bench. I really do hope he's fit. I think he's our best physical asset when it comes to it. How his build, and for the Premier League, that's what you want. And arguably, when he's probably going to be facing a Zuma on Saturday, if he does play, he's probably the player you want on the pitch. To cope with Zuma's physicality. So it's promising. It's encouraging that he's playing games, getting minutes, and hopefully now he can get 60 minutes in the tank in the next game.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time. We don't want to rush him back, given we've got so many fixtures and he is so important to us. But yeah, it was promising to see him get more minutes and come through unscathed. And lastly, more good stuff from Hakim Ziyech with the goal. But yeah, he's one of those where it's either you just don't know what you're going to get. He might come on for half hour, be absolutely shit, or he might come on and score a goal like he did last night. But we're grateful for it. But again, I think like we mentioned touched on with Havertz, it's that Ziyech's consistency that needs to improve, isn't it?
Yeah, and you kind of in and out of the team with injuries, with other players performing better than him. And like you said, he can be shit or he can score a goal. And if anything, yesterday he did both. He was shit and then he scored a goal. So yeah, I think quite a weird player to assess at times, but a good. I want to say a good squad player. That's what I'll say. Yeah,
100%, and he has made valuable contributions in the last few weeks. But yeah, having said all that, we got the win, the most important thing. We stay top of the league by 1 point. Massive game away at West Ham on Saturday lunchtime. That's going to be a level up again. We're going to have to improve our performance. But yeah, guys, that's obviously myself and Theo's thoughts on the game, the player ratings. If you enjoyed it, make sure you smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And guys, thanks for tuning in live if you did. If you're watching it back, we hope you enjoy it. Make sure you check out Theo's podcasts and follow him on socials. I'll link all those below. And we'll catch you in the West Ham preview tomorrow. Cheers, guys.